Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my final official top 50 player release, my final big board for the 2022 NFL Draft. I'm going to go rapid fire, quick rundown on my final top 50. These are my personal rankings, nobody else's. They're mine. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with them, but again, this is just my opinion on the current prospects, and we're going to go ahead and zoom this in to take a look. We're going to go through this really quickly. So, of course, you know, I always have had Nakobe Dean as my number one overall player. I think he's a mini Bobby Wagner. He is an elite linebacker leader. I love Nakobe Dean. He is my number one overall player. I'm playing it safe. I know Nakobe Dean's going to be a superstar in the NFL. Worst case scenario, he's a multi-time All-Pro. Worst case, that's why he's my number one overall player. Number two, maybe a little bit more risky here, going with Ikem Ekwonu over Evan Neal. I've got Evan Neal down at number 8. So Ikem Ekwonu, a little bit higher upside than Evan Neal due to the body type, in terms of maybe a little bit bigger risk as well than Evan Neal. But this is a guy that could be an Orlando Pace type offensive tackle. He is absolutely huge, and we will see if he does go number 1 overall in the draft. If he doesn't go number 1, I'm expecting him to go number 3 overall to the Houston Texans to be their left tackle. So I think the top 3 picks are pretty much guaranteed in some order: Aidan Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, and Ikem Ekwonu. What order that's going to be, we'll have to see. But Ikem Ekwonu is my number 2 overall player, number 1 offensive tackle. This guy is a franchise left tackle. He's got it written all over him. Garrett Wilson, my number 3 overall player, absolute lock to be a Pro Bowler, to be a multi-time 1,000-yard receiver per year. Garrett Wilson is an absolute stud. Garrett Wilson and Ahmad Gardner are very similar. You both of these guys, they're going to be superstars. Don't overthink it when you're making your big board. If you're out there, you're making a big board, these two guys are guaranteed top 5 players. These are studs. Absolutely airtight studs. I compared Garrett Wilson to a mixture of Justin Jefferson and Calvin Ridley, and I compared Ahmad Gardner to Jalen Ramsey. He's a really lengthy cornerback. George Karlaftis comes in at number 5. People are saying George Karlaftis might fall in the first round. He's absolutely a huge physical specimen. I feel like scouts really don't know where to rank George Karlaftis. This guy's from Greece. He's massive. He's going to be a pressures machine. He's just a straight-up disruptor, a straight-up bully. Whoever gets him early to mid-first round is getting an elite franchise-level pass rusher. You've got Aidan Hutchinson coming in at number 6. He's been the guy that's been considered, the number 1 overall player, according to most people, the number 1 overall pick. We'll have to see if the Jaguars actually take him number 1. Maybe it's a smoke screen. Maybe it's not. Maybe he does fall. But Aidan Hutchinson is a guarantee to be a top 2 draft pick. If he falls, he will not be falling far. The Detroit Lions will take him guaranteed. If he falls to number 2, they'll take the hometown kid from Michigan. Next, we've got Kyle Hamilton. This is a guy that seems to be falling on people's boards overall, but I love Kyle Hamilton. He did run a little bit of a slow 40 time. My NFL comparison for Kyle Hamilton is going to be Justin Simmons. Really long, lengthy, athletic, rangy safety. He's everything you want in a modern-day safety. Kyle Hamilton, my number 7 overall player and my number 1 safety. Then you've got Evan Neal at number 8. This is a guy that can play both guard and tackle, although I'm sure he's going to be drafted in the first round with the likeliness he will play tackle. Very likely to be picked by a New York team, whether it's the Jets or the Giants. Both of those teams have 2 picks within the top 10, so we will see, but he's a very safe prospect. I just think Ikem Ekwonu has a little bit higher of an upside. That's why he comes in at number 2 compared to Evan Neal coming in at number 8. He is my number 2 overall offensive tackle. We've got Drake London at number 9. The only concern with Drake is the injuries, although I think USC being bad He didn't want to rush anything. It's not like USC was in, a playoff contention or anything like that. So it's better he just sits out the rest of the season, which he did. And he was putting up crazy numbers before he did have the injury. Just, 10 catches per game. He's a big receiver. If you're looking for a big, solid target, he is wide receiver number 1. Garrett Wilson is a little bit smaller than him, but overall, when it comes to receivers, he's my number 2 receiver. I think a team like Atlanta at number 8, if they want to draft a bigger receiver, could go for someone like Garrett Wilson. Absolute star. In the NFL comparisons, you could go with either Michael Thomas or Mike Evans, kind of that bigger build. I think he's built a little bit more like Mike Evans than Michael Thomas personally. He's just a little bit more girthy. Number 10 overall, it's going to be Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon is a guy that I've really struggled with ranking because absolute freak. He's the Jadeveon Clowney type, guy of this class where he's just a physical beast. He's a pressures guy. When you take a look at his career at Oregon, this is a former 5-star, top 5 overall player in his class. Was injured a little bit, especially during his junior year, but when he played, he produced well. It'll be, he's a very polarizing prospect. This is a guy that could fall into the, mid-teens of the first round, I've been hearing. So we'll have to see. Coming in at number 11, I'm playing it pretty safe here, going with Tyler Linderbaugh. Tyler Linderbaugh is not going to be drafted number 11 overall, but he's number 11 on my big board because he's that good of a football player. The problem is he is absolutely a pure center, and teams do not value centers like they do other positions, especially in the top of the first round. So he is a guy that's probably going to fall to at least 20th, where a team will get him for very good value. But again, he is a center, and his position is just not that valuable when it comes to being a top NFL draft pick. Number 12, it's going to be David Bell. So maybe a little bit of a surprise to some people. David Bell, a lot of people think he's around a 3rd-round pick. I just simply don't get it. I understand he ran a slow 40 time, whatever. This is a guy that just simply produces. He's got great hands. He gets open. And what I always like to say when it comes to the NFL, it's not so much about the speed when it comes to receivers. It's about how well can you separate off the line of scrimmage. How good are you at route running? Look at Cooper Kupp. Look at Jamar Chase. These guys aren't running, 4.3s at the combine. They're just really good with separation. David Bell is a player, very good with separation. I think someone drafts him in the 2nd round. Great value. If he falls to the 3rd round, that's crazy. Either way, David Bell from Purdue, he did nothing but produce. It's not like his measurables are so bad to where he's not going to be able to perform well in the NFL. They're good enough. He's fast enough. He's got good enough hands, and he's just a really good receiver. You don't have to run a 4.3 40 to be an elite receiver in the NFL. Michael Thomas proved it. Jamar Chase proved it. Cooper Kupp proved it. David Bell will prove it. He comes in at number 12. Derek Stingley Jr. is number 13. I've seen Derek Stingley Jr. as high as number 3 overall on big boards. I think that's a little aggressive considering the injury history. We know the story with Derek Stingley Jr. We understand, the injuries he suffered as a sophomore, as a junior. How much of that was an actual injury? How much of that was, Derek Stingley Jr. and his agent knowing he was guaranteed to be a 1st-round pick and LSU was out of the playoff contention very early, both in his sophomore and junior years, so he didn't want to push it. We don't really know. He had one of the best true freshman seasons I've ever seen from a cornerback. He's a guy that's a very good athlete. This is a top 3 overall player in his class, 5-star lock, Derek Stingley Jr. He passes the eye test. Can he stay healthy in the NFL? That is the major question for him. Number 14 and my number 1 overall quarterback, my QB1, it is Carson Strong. The major question with Carson Strong is the athleticism. He's not very mobile, but I love Carson Strong. This is very elite arm talent. My NFL comparison is a slightly less athletic Josh Allen. He's from Nevada. His stats at Nevada were actually very good, very underrated type player, currently being projected in the 3rd round. But guys, I'm calling my shot. I've said it from the beginning. I think Carson Strong is the QB1 of this class, and I'm standing by it. So he's number 14 on my list. 15, so this was very tough for me. Jameson Williams versus Chris Alave. I did give the edge to Jameson Williams. He is my number 15 overall player, my number 4 overall receiver. This is an absolutely loaded receiver class. The reason he is slightly ahead of Chris Olave, he's faster, number 1, and number 2, I think he absorbs hits a little bit better. The one concern I have with Chris Olave is the overall size at the next level. But Chris Olave is so smooth. If you watched him at the combine, you can just tell he has it. He's going to be a great receiver. And Jameson Williams, if he hadn't suffered that injury in the national championship game, this guy could have very easily been a top 10 pick. He still might be a top 10 pick. His speed is no joke. You pair that with, his overall underrated strength. Jameson Williams slightly edges out Chris Olave, but they're both amazing prospects, 15 and 16 overall. Then we've got Malik Willis, who I think is a very, extremely athletic, good, mobile, modern-day quarterback that has an elite enough arm to be drafted, maybe as high as number 6 overall to the Carolina Panthers. We'll have to see if a team ends up trading up for Malik Willis. Malik Willis is the guy that I expect to be the first quarterback off the board in front of Kenny Pickett. I've said from the beginning, I think Kenny Pickett's going to be a bust. Malik Willis, he does have a little bit of an accuracy concern overall at Liberty, but he's got really athletic traits, similar a little bit to David Garrard. If you guys remember him, that was my NFL comparison for him. He comes in at 17. Number 18, it's going to be Trevor Penning. He's got an elite body type. Love him as an offensive tackle, as a left tackle. One of my big hot takes was I like Trevor Penning over Charles Cross from Mississippi State, who's going to very likely be in the top 10. Charles Cross isn't even on my top 50 board. Trayvon Walker's not on my top 50 board either. I'm going with best players, guys. I'm not going with who's being projected number 1. These are going to be the best players. That's my big board. I'm just ranking them by best players. So Trevor Penning, he comes in at number 18 overall. He is very raw, and the competition level at Northern Iowa, it's a question mark, but his overall build and his overall interviews were amazing. This is a kid that's going to learn quickly. I love Trevor Penning. I think he could step in day 1 and be a left tackle in the NFL due to how, his size, his mobility. I love Trevor Penning. Number 19, the first defensive tackle, it's going to be from Georgia, not Jordan Davis. It's going to be Devontae Wyatt, who's a lot smaller than Jordan Davis. He is only 6'3", but this is a guy that I think is a really elite player, has a really elite motor, maybe a little Sheldon Rankins-like. So I like Devontae Wyatt as my number 19 overall player. And then we've also got Travis Jones, another defensive tackle. I've been on the Travis Jones train from the beginning. From Connecticut. He's my number 20 overall player. He's currently looks like he's a late first, early second rounder. This is a guy that's very mobile when it comes to being a big body defensive tackle. He's a clogger, but he's also elite when it comes to his mobility. He comes in at number 20. Number 21, it's going to be Cole Strange. I love Cole Strange, the offensive guard from Chattanooga. A lot of people probably don't even know him. He's currently being mocked in 3rd rounds, but this is a franchise-type offensive guard. He's going to be a multi-time All-Pro in the NFL. He has the perfect body for the NFL, Cole Strange. I've done hours of scouting. It's amazing, guys, what I'm doing. He's going to be a beast. Cole Strange, number 21. Number 22, it's Trey McBride, by far the most complete tight end of this pass. Really good blocker, really underrated pass catcher. This is a guy I compare favorably to George Kittle personally, or even someone like TJ Hawkinson, who went, I believe, number 9 overall in his draft. So Trey McBride currently being mocked in 2nd rounds. It's an absolute steal. He comes in at number 22. Number 23, it's going to be Breece Hall. I compare Breece Hall to Nick Chubb. You look at Breece Hall and you wouldn't think he's that fast. He's very compact, but he is extremely quick. He ran an unbelievable 40 time at the combine. Breece Hall, the running back from Iowa State. I would love to see a team like the Buffalo Bills splurge and spend a 1st-round pick on Breece Hall. That's how good I think he is. I understand you don't want to spend 1st-round picks on running backs, but late in the 1st round, get Josh Allen a legitimate running back. It would be so sweet to see them do that. He comes in at 23. Number 24, maybe a little risky here. I'm going with George Pickens. The wide receiver from Georgia, who was out basically his entire junior year with an injury. He also was suspended a game for fighting someone from Georgia Tech, I believe, his sophomore year. So George Pickens, little risky, but the overall tools. This is a former 5-star from the 2019 class. This is a guy who's 6'3", built like DK Metcalf. He ran a 4.4 240. It's crazy. George Pickens is everything you want in a big-bodied elite receiver, and this wide receiver class is absolutely loaded. He comes in at number 24. Number 25, move down a little bit. It's going to be Devin Lloyd from Utah, who I think is a really good football player. He did run the slow 40 time at the combine. He ran a 4.71, but I think Devin Lloyd has a nose for the football. My NFL comparison for Devin Lloyd is actually Devin Bush, the Michigan linebacker who went to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round a few years ago. So Devin Lloyd, really solid linebacker. Number 26, it's going to be Matt Corral, who is a quarterback from Ole Miss. He is my number 3 quarterback on my big board, coming in at number 26. And, I compare him to Matt Stafford. He's a gunslinger, and I really do like his arm. I think a team's going to get a steal late in the first round. The Wonderlic score was a little concerning. He scored only 15 on the Wonderlic. But overall, this is a guy, as long as he picks up the playbook, I think he's going to be really good due to his arm talent. He comes in at number 26. Number 27, another receiver. It's going to be Alec Pierce. Just really, really, really good all-around receiver. He's big enough. He's fast enough. He's got good enough hands. He's had elite production at the University of Cincinnati. Alec Pierce is a really underrated player. He comes in at number 27. Another underrated player comes in at number 28. It's going to be Jaquan Brisker, who's a hard-hitting safety from Penn State. He's always in the right spot. Hits really hard, really compact, really good TJ Ward-like safety. Jaquan Brisker, probably going to be a second-round pick. I like him at 29. It's going to be a very rangy, athletic linebacker, Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma. The size is a little bit of a concern. He's a pure outside linebacker, a pure speed guy. But this is a guy, if I could get him in late second, early third round, he's a guy that he's a weapon. Like, I would just say he's a weapon for a defense. You put him at one of the outside linebacker spots. You tell him to cover a tight end. Maybe if the tight end's a little bit bigger, he could have a few problems because he's not as physical. But this is a guy, he's just a weapon. You could blitz him. You could do so many different things with him as long as he refines his tackling, maybe puts on a little bit of weight. This is a guy that could be a really good, rangy, modern-day linebacker. We've got David Ajabo coming in at number 30. Very tough player to rank, coming off that, gruesome knee injury or leg injury he had at the Michigan Pro Day just about a month ago. This was a guy that was a mid-first rounder. He's still a really good pressures guy. Played well against Ohio State, had a really good, last year at Michigan alongside Aidan Hutchinson. You could say that's in part because Aidan Hutchinson was getting a lot of the double teams and stuff, but still, this is a really good athletic pass rusher, David Ajabo. He's a disruptor. He is a disruptor. He comes in at 30. Another Michigan player, we've got Daxton Hill. He can do a lot. He can play a lot of positions. Safety, cornerback, that's what he played at Michigan. He's a former 5-star. He's an elite athlete. He only spent 3 years at Michigan. He's very young. His draft age is very young, so that's going to appeal to teams. He comes in at number 31. Bayley Zappy, maybe a little bit of a surprise here, coming in at number 32, the Western Kentucky quarterback. This guy set all type of records. He's got an extremely strong, accurate arm, really good in the pocket. The level of competition is a little bit of a concern, no doubt, and the fact that it's a Western Kentucky quarterback, that's another little bit of a concern. But this guy, his arm is so strong. He's going to go in the 4th round. It's going to be a steal for someone. He will develop into a franchise quarterback. Jordan Davis comes in at number 33, the big defensive tackle from Georgia. A lot of people have this guy in their top 15. I can't do it personally. I feel like in a 2-minute drill, he's got to be off the field. He simply gets winded. His motor's not good enough. Although this guy, he is a disruptor. When he's ready to go, he is a disruptor. He just gets winded too easily for me to have him as like a top 15 overall player. He's a rotational player. That's what I'm trying to say. 34, it's going to be Cam Taylor Britt. This is another one of my draft crushes from the beginning. I would love to see Cam Taylor Britt go in the first round, but if there's a word I could describe Cam Taylor Britt, it's dog. This guy's a dog. He's got great ball skills. I see him getting 4 or 5 interceptions per year. He just has a nose for the football, and he looks so fluid. He looks like a great corner. He's physical. He gets into the receivers. I love Cam Taylor Britt. Even though he is only 6 foot, he's built so well to be an elite cornerback in the NFL. That is why he's a little bit higher on my board than other people's. Zion Johnson, really solid offensive guard. Maybe goes late first round from Boston College. Solid player, really solid football player. Next, we've got Woolen, the cornerback from the University of Texas San Antonio. Really polarizing player. 6'4". I believe his height is 6'4". That's what he measured at the combine. Crazy 40 time. Crazy fast 40 time. The only other guy that was 6'4" that had success in the NFL at the cornerback position, I believe, was Brandon Browner. But this kid's way faster than Brandon Browner was. This is a unicorn-type athlete. I would draft this kid just because I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to use this kid. It's crazy. I've never seen measurables like this. I had to rank him. I had to put him at number 36. Trent McDuffie comes in at 37. A lot of people have him inside their top 20. For me, he is just 5'11", so that's tough. I've never been a huge, Trent McDuffie's a top 10 player or top 20 player. I've never been there. People have had him as high as number 8, I've seen on some big boards. But solid player, little bit concerned. It's not like he was ever a shutdown at Washington either. I mean, he had a nice career, but he was never a shutdown cornerback at Washington. And the overall testing numbers were a little subpar. If you're 5'11", you would love to see a 40 time of like a 4.36 or something. And I don't think we saw that from Trent McDuffie. At number 38, it's going to be NPF. Nicholas Petit-Frere from Ohio State. I think he's going to be a starting offensive tackle in the NFL. Guys, let's remember, this is a former 5-star top 10 overall player from the 2018 class. I believe he was the number 7 overall player. This is an elite tackle body who played really well. Underrated player. PFF graded him out really well. I like this kid. I feel like not a lot of people are talking about him for whatever reason. If you can get him in the late second, early third round, that's great value. Number 39, it's going to be Sam Howell. He's got elite arm talent, but he's extremely inconsistent. Similar pro comparison to Baker Mayfield. You see Baker make great throws, and then you see him make terrible throws. Sam Howell is exactly like that. It'll be interesting to see where he gets picked. Kirby Joseph from Illinois, the safety. Shout out to him and shout out to Illinois. Love Kirby Joseph. Really solid player. Probably going to end up being a late second, third round pick. But I love Kirby Joseph. Someone's going to be getting a steal. He's just an overall solid, rangy safety. He comes in at 40. 41, it's going to be Kylo Gordon. We were expecting Kylo Gordon to really do better at the combine, to bump himself into the first round. It didn't happen, so I'm putting him at 41. He is the other Washington cornerback, but he is still a really good athlete. He could be an amazing slot corner in the NFL for a team. Coming in at 42, it's going to be Cameron Thomas. Really love this pass rusher. Really good pressures from San Diego State. San Diego State had an amazing defense this past year, and Cameron Thomas was a big part of the reason why. He comes in at 42. Really good pass rusher. Christian Harris, kind of an underrated player from Alabama. Nobody talks about Christian Harris, but he surprisingly tested really well at the combine. This was a guy that before the season started was being mocked early first round. He's really talented. He kind of fell out of the first round because people thought he wasn't a great athlete, but he ran really well at the combine. Christian Harris is someone I really like. He's a solid player. He's going to be a solid starter in the NFL for many years at the linebacker position, probably middle linebacker position. He comes in at 43. Number 44, Nick Bonitto. Yes, the edge rusher from Oklahoma. I love these types of edge rushers. Really lengthy, really quick. Another one would be Sam Williams from Ole Miss. I don't have him in my top 50, but I like him. But yeah, Nick Bonitto is someone that he's a guy that's going to get a lot of pressures. Pressures machine, Nick Bonitto. 45, we've got Lewis Seen, who's a very solid safety from Georgia. Another Georgia defensive prospect makes the list. 46, Logan Hall. I've loved Logan Hall for a while. The defensive tackle from Houston. A little bit smaller, still a really good prospect. Myjai Sanders. A lot of people don't remember Myjai Sanders was a first-round prospect earlier this year. He fell down many people's boards. He didn't fall down mine. He's number 47 still from Cincinnati. Kenneth Walker, the third, the running back from Michigan. I really do like Walker. He's not as good as Breece Hall, but he still is a really solid running back, and I thought I had to include him on here. He's going to be a really good value mid to late second round, and he also ran a really good 40 time, by the way. I was surprised his 40 time was as good as it was, so he does have some speed. Andrew Booth Jr., we're going with him at 39, or excuse me, at 49. Former 5-star, solid cornerback. I think a team might overdraft him if they draft him in the first round. I do not think he's a first-round prospect. Still a decent player. And then Troy Anderson, the linebacker from Montana State. And I also included Kobe Bryant at 51. I don't know why I did that, but he's on there at 51. I really like Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati, the cornerback. He's got some dog into him. I love these cornerbacks that play. They play with a moxie. It's really nice, but guys, that is my full top 50, or I guess top 51 list of players. And then, we'll end up having to see where they get drafted, their draft position. It'll be really interesting to see where these guys get picked tomorrow night during the 2022 draft. But that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.